Hi, this is Jack of Jack Banks Design LLC. I suppose I owe everyone an explanation on the left-hand threads on the mp22s. Um, Promise I didn't do it just to screw with anyone. Um, so the big reason for them is so when you go to snug up your silencer, um, as one does in between mags, when you go to snug it up, snug up the shoulder of the silencer against the shoulder of your barrel here. That way you're not unthreading your sleeve from your monocore. So if you can see this gap here as I'm snugging up the silencer against the barrel, it's also snugging up the sleeve against the flange on the monocore here. So it tightens both simultaneously. And what that does is the tension on the monocore compresses the carbon fiber tube, and this aluminum ring here that that compresses your muzzle threads so that these fine little plastic threads don't want to launch off the end of your barrel. So basically, when you're when you're when you're tightening the threads against the shoulder of the barrel, you're compressing the threads in one direction, and then when you snug this up, your those M20 threads on the inside are then compressing your muzzle threads in the other direction. So that way, basically, these threads can't stretch and fly off the end of your muzzle, and basically that's just going to give you a little more wiggle room if you get your barrel hot and you've printed your monocore out of PLA, and it goes past that glass transition and starts to get kind of rubbery. That's just going to give you a little more margin for error, because the the walls of the threaded portion are not going to be able to, there's just nowhere for them to go. They'd have to like literally melt and squeeze out the ends here. So that just gives you a little more margin for error so you don't launch your stuff down range. And that's always embarrassing when you got to get the range officer to shut down the range to let you go retrieve your 3D printed silencer. Side note, just for the ATF man, this is a dummy. That's why it's not serialized. I did mine on a Form 1, so if I show you my core, I can only use my real core with my real serialized body here. And I don't know for a fact that showing that information would be bad, but I don't know. You just never know what people can do with that kind of information. So I modeled this up. It's a faux suppressor, dummy suppressor, whatever you want to call it. So it's essentially a linear comp, no baffles, completely open on the end. I did shoot it just to make sure it doesn't reduce the signature, and I think it actually makes it louder. It was absolutely loud AF and hurt my ears. So, but that also kind of, because if I show you the real one, I got to put tape over it, and then it looks hideous. And out of all the 3D printed silencer designs out there, that's one of the biggest advantages of this one, is how attractive it is, because you really don't see much of the 3D printed parts, and what little you do see, you can get after with some 600 grit emery, and you could even Cerakote. I mean, like if you want to get real crazy about it, you could even Cerakote it, and no one would, just looking at the outside, no one would ever know. You can anodize this aluminum part. I kind of like the raw look myself, but you could anodize that. Lots of different color options for soft coat anodizing. But yeah, I wanted to show that off and not have to put tape over it, so I modeled this dummy. But yeah, that's the explanation for those left-hand threads. So lefty tighty, basically, when you're installing that. And again, that just when you're snugging this up on your muzzle, it just prevents you from, because if they were right-hand threads, with the muzzle threads being right-hand, you would actually, as soon as the shoulder of the monocore hits the shoulder of your barrel, you'd actually start unscrewing your silencer, and you wouldn't be able just to, because what you ought to get in the habit of doing, if you're not already, is in between mags, when you're at the range, just reach up, give it a little snug, make sure it's not shooting itself loose. And that's not anything unique to this silencer. That's just silencers in general. You always want to, of course, if you, we're talking center fire, you want to make sure you're wearing a glove or have a mitt, because they'll get to about 1100 degrees. You can get those glowing red hot. Definitely don't reach up and grab your 5.56 silencer, but this one, I mean, even rapid fire, it just gets warm. But yeah, as long as I have your attention, next project is going to be to make a integral version of this. So take this internal design and adapt it to make a DIY Form 1 integral monocore suppressor that's going to work with a Ruger Mark IV standard upper. So the standard upper with the tapered barrel, it's like a 4-inch tapered barrel. These little integrals, they're just so much fun. I mean, it's like absolutely my favorite gun I've ever owned. But the little suckers are $1,500 to $2,500 each. This one was on the cheaper side of things. That I think I was in it for like $1,400 out the door. But yeah, the design I'm going to be working on is going to give you that level of performance and that fun factor, but probably at an all-in cost of around $500. I don't know why. I don't know what they do with them, but remanufacturers buy those Mark IV standards and they take the standard uppers off, just I guess so they can get the lower and the bolt parts. Not really sure what they do with them, but they sell those standard uppers as takeoffs for about $130, I think is what I paid for mine that I just ordered. So yeah, you could do a Form 1 on that for, I don't know what especially if you printed your Mark IV lower. But I think Mark IV lowers are pretty cheap because they're not a serialized part. Anyways, moral of the story is you can get $2,000 performance for the price of a Mark IV, some carbon fiber, and a $200 tax stamp. So that's going to be pretty cool. But yeah, thank you very much for supporting the mp22s here. I was really delightfully surprised at the response I got to this, and how many of y'all have been supporting it. And that is going right back into R&D for like I said, this integral project I'm going to do next. It'll use the same diameter and length aluminum serial ring. I'm going to try to maybe make it modular to where it will work with the existing mp22s design, and then you just put an additional length of carbon fiber as a reflex chamber behind it, and that would cover the ported barrel. That may be a bridge too far. I don't know. We'll have to see when I start modeling things, but yeah, I'm really excited about that. Yeah, I think that's about it. I'll go ahead and sign it off there.